Welcome back, everybody. This is the Me, Myself, and I playthrough of the main event scenario of Unconditional Surrender, game published by GMT Games, designed by Salvatore Vasta. We're about to embark on December of 1941. The Russian winter is upon us. The Russian winter marker is placed in the cold zone. I tend to place it in poor, simply because that reminds me that the Russians inside Russia there are running at poor in the cold zone. That's their weather. Everybody else, Finns, Romanians, Hungarians, Germans, they're having to suffer under severe. We will need to roll for the other two. So this first die roll will be for the mild zone. It's a 1. In December, February, 1 is poor. And then for the warm zone, we roll a 6. In December, February, that is severe. So, nasty gales in the Mediterranean. Well. And we move on to the declare war phase. Axis has done their share of declaring war. No. The West is not set up, and neither are the Soviets to take care of anything. Economy, just a quick look at the national tracks. The British are up to 16 because they got an extra Lend-Lease factory. So 9 minus 6 is 3, plus 3 for their trade marker, which makes it 6, and then 7, 8. So that puts them at 16. The Russians start off with 6 minus 1 is 5. They have a Lend-Lease, which makes 6, and then they have 3 Urals mountains, which makes 9. So they're actually up to 18. The Germans started at 28. They gave 1 to the Italians. Again, I don't think I really need to give 1 to the Romanians at this point. I might be wrong, but I don't think I do. So we are done with economy phases. Strategic warfare. The Axis is at +1. The Soviets are at +2. Soviets now have a partisans marker. Partisans can make 1 hex on the map be at like -2. I don't think I'm going to need it here for this winter offensive. I don't think it's going to be that grand of an offensive. So I'm going to go ahead and play the marker for the Soviets, since the Germans can't respond, and cut the German die roll in half and see if we can't steal a factory from them. So the Germans roll a 1 plus 1, halved is a 1. The Russians roll with a +2, a 6. That means that the German factory loss marker goes up by 1. The Russians can't go down by 1 because they're at the lowest amount they can be at. So that was useful. We have to roll dice for the... I'm going to do this adjustment again. So we're rolling for the partisan down here. The die roll is a 5, so the Russians won't see it for 5 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll get it back in May. So that's that. The Germans start off at +3 against the West, and now, because the U.S. is in the war, the British automatically get a +2. Excuse me a minute. Clear my throat there. So it's not as big a disparity as it used to be. If we look at the faction card, they don't have an ultra marker or partisans to play yet, the British. So, and the Germans don't have subs, so it's just going to be die rolls with our pluses. So the Germans roll a 5 plus 3, which is an 8. And the British roll a 4 plus 2, which is a 6. So I better check that one. An 8 to a 6 is a diamond. So what that does is on the national tracks, the German factory loss marker goes back down 1, and so does the British one. So they get some more production points next turn. And that's strategic warfare. Strategic movement for the Axis. I have the markers up here. Bring up the faction card. Put that on my faction card. I really don't see a place to do a proper strategic move at this point. there is a threat that the British could use their surprise attack marker and invade Benghazi. I think with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could definitely isolate whatever is there. The Germans, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I could isolate. If the British go into Benghazi, they would be isolated. They'd be attacking with a garrison unit, so they would take the port. The Africa Corps could run back and attack it. The 4th Garrison could move over here, cutting it off. It would be isolated. I would be like plus, 5 or 4 because of a city, to a -1 at best with a tank, maybe a +1. Don't think he can fly his air up there and keep it all supplied. So it would be wasting their surprise marker, and it's still a long way till the British will have 20 production points left to do anything. So I'm not going to worry too much about that invasion. An invasion at El Galia would be different. That would cut supply very badly, and I'm a little too far away to be able to counterattack it. So I'm going to take the chance, assume that the British aren't going to be overly aggressive at this point. They seem to be building themselves up for the 1942 offensive. So no strategic movement for me, no strategic movement for the West. The Soviets, they did do that silly strategic move up here just to get somebody out of Moscow. I think I'm going to go ahead and strategically move the Stalingrad infantry unit up just so that he's closer to the front in the future. So I'm just going to, since he's so far away, let's move him up to someplace useful. Where's someplace useful? Oh, I know someplace useful. Not there. We're going to go ahead and move him into... we're going to move him down here by the river. We'll put him here, by the bend of the River Don, planning for long-term movement there. We're into the Axis operations phase. Now, I'm under severe, so my airplanes can't really do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Russian airplanes could be added in. If you look at the combat results table, the best the Germans can get, because they're +2 for being German, -4 for sorties. That makes them a -2. If they roll 4 and have it, the best they can get is a 2. The Russians are under poor weather, so their airplanes, as far as I understand it, are -4 sorties and then another -2 because of poor weather. So basically the Germans can just trade sorties with the Russians, which is basically what I'm thinking of doing for this turn. I really don't want to give them extra +1s, especially in this 3rd Panzer situation up here. I'm going to try to redress that a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot I can do at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and trade out sorties. We don't even need to roll dice. The math says we each will take 1 sortie each in each combat. So we can just go ahead and do that and be done with it instead of rolling a whole bunch of dice. Axis. Do they have anything? Basically, this puts the Russians into a position where they have +1 on any given defense. Yes, the Axis have some moving to do. I got to get this guy out of the line because I don't want to lose a will point for him. Need to put him someplace semi-useful. Can't leave him in the line, so I think I'm going to have him just move 1, 2 into Smolensk. That's a production point. Then I'm going to activate the 4th to move here. Now, if I counted this right, it's 1 for the river and 2 for the space, so that makes 3. And then it's 1 for the river, 2 for the space, 4, 5, 6, and 2 for the unit is 7, 8. So I can assault. Where's my assault markers? Get this thing out of my way. Assault marker on Bryansk. And then the 16th and the 8th will both, since they're adjacent to Bryansk, will assault. And I'm not going to resolve that right away. I'm going to look at some other possibilities here. 6, 7. Boy, he can't get very far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you can get to there. That's really not helpful. Russians are at poor, so they're not going to be halved. They're going to have straight tie rolls to my halves. So I think I might go ahead and try another assault somewhere. Actually, I think I'm just going to see what this assault does. So we're just going to do this one. The Germans start off at +2, and then they get +2 for buddies. The 8th will be the primary this time. And then, because I'm attacking city, it's -1. The Russians start off at 0. They can throw in a tanks marker since the Germans are kind of limited on what they're going to do for assaults. I think I might go ahead and throw a tanks marker in here just to see if I can hold it. So the Germans are not going to. They could throw. They can't throw in a tanks marker because it doesn't count. So the Russians will throw in their tank marker here. I'm going to put it down here so that I can get it on the turn track easier. They get a +1 out of that. So it's a +3 to a +1 on Bryansk, and the Germans are halved. German roll. 6 + 3 is a 9, 4.5. Round up, they have a net of 5. And the Russians roll. A 2 + 1 is a 3. So we go to the CRT. 5 to a 3. Sure enough, the Germans managed to pull it off. So he's retreated. He has one place to go, 2450. The German 16th will be the one who takes the hex. And that helps clarify a few things for me. Interesting dilemma for the Germans here. You'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Couldn't attack. There's a shock army sitting up there. This is kind of a dilemma for me. Can't really shore up my defenses the way I'd like. I do need to get the 11th, I think, skedaddling southward. I'm wondering if I need to give up this hex on Bryansk, or on Smolensk. This 2149, because he can go, the 51st can go 1944 to 2048. He can move a shock army in. He can move in the 23rd. He would be +1, +2 for the shock, make a tank. If he saves a tank marker, he could throw it in, so he'd be +1, +2, 3, +4. to my +2, and I would have no retreat route. I would actually be isolated. So that's not a good thing for me to be facing. So what to do? Could activate the 4th Panzer and just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 rather. Be in 2048, and that would kind of shore up that problem. Keep that from happening. He still would get a 3x attack on me, but I would have a retreat route at that point. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can't really get anywhere here. To think about that, in the south, I really don't have anything I can do. He's going to be able to retreat the 3rd Panzer, most likely. He'll be at like a +1, 2, 3, 4 to my +2. Can't do anything about that. Yeah, I think I'm kind of just sort of stuck. Actually, he could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He could be +6 on my Panzer. Well, -1 for the weather, so +5. Oh dear, +5 to +2. That could be nasty. Well, let's do the obvious thing. We got to put the Russian tank marker back on the turn for January. The Germans really are in our world of hurt here. I don't know what to do. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I'm going to have to plan for the future. I guess I'm going to have to take the... Well, I could do that instead. Alright, the 4th Panzer activates. Where's my faction card? Take a couple off for him. He's going to go 1, 2, and then 3, 4. He'll have a retreat route, but it sets him up for keeping the 14th in supply. The 11th would be +3 minus +3. So we're going to try and make a minor breakthrough here in the north to counter him in the south. We're going to go 1, 2, and then call for 1. Let's see, I started at 27, I spent 3, so I should have been at 24. 2 for the armored unit, and then 1, 2, 3 more. I'm going to do 3 more infantry units. This one, and this one. I'll activate and do assaults. So this guy will assault this way. Where's the other assault markers? This guy assaults this way. This guy assaults this way. So, and we'll do that assault. It should be, primary is the guy that's not crossing the river. So he's +2, and then +2 for buddies makes him +4. Going into rough terrain makes him +3. The Russians start off at 0. Not sure if there's going to be too many other assaults going on. I do want to save one tanks thing for the 3rd Panzer. And I'm going to go ahead and play the, since I have 3, I'll play another one for a +1. So it's +3 to +1 up here. The Germans are halved. They roll 4 + 3, which is a 7, which comes down to a 3.5, rounds up to a 4. And the Russians are +1, and they get a 4, so nothing happens here. This is all, again, much ado about nothing. boom, and boom, and actually I should have these down here because they're probably going to be used more down here someplace. And that means that this tank's marker needs to go on the turn track for next turn. And now what? Well, the Germans could try. It's a paltry attack, but I think I'm going to do it. Where's my national tracks? I'm going to spend 2 more on infantry. I'm going to activate the 10th and the 15th. And they're going to call for an assault on Kursk. It's not a very good assault. They start off at +2 for one of them being the primary. +2 for that, and then +1 for one guy adding, and then -1. So now it's a +2 to a 0. If he throws in the tanks marker, he won't have it to try and assault the 3rd Panzer. I really want to try and get off a decent assault against the 3rd Panzer. But I do need to hold Kursk in order to get this shock army here into this hex. Basically, I'd move out the 16th and the 37th and have the 2 shock armies move in. Throw a tanks marker on the 30th, and then I would have like a +6 to a +2. Or +5 to a +2 because of the weather. So, good lord. Do I want to take the chance on losing Kursk at this point? Well, he would end up being possibly no retreat route on an assault, so I could get a step out of him. Then I have to figure out a way to fill in the line. Decisions. And I know something, the assault on the 3rd Panzer is not nearly important as holding Kursk. So, from the Russian standpoint, I think Kursk is more important, so we're going to make it a +1 to a +1. Or a +2 to a +1. Give me a better chance of holding on to Kursk. The Germans roll. 3 + 2 is a 5, halved to 2.5, round up is a 3. And the Russians roll a 2, +1 is a 3, so nothing happens there. So they held Kursk here in December. I think that was a more important thing, because if I had rolled a 1 with the Russians, I still would have held it. Otherwise, I would have lost Kursk, and that would have been a possible issue for me being able to get things where I want them to be, because I'm kind of sparse in the south, just like the Germans. Seem to have too many units kind of in this place here. But I did hold it, so the Germans really don't have anything else. The Hungarians don't want to move. Romanians don't want to move. Let's go look in the Middle East and see if there's anything to do in the Middle East. The desert's always fair. I really want to hold out for the Italians to be able to use all their points to clear sorties, because I can get both convoys, the airplane, and a navy down if I don't spend any points with the Italians. So I'm not going to spend any points with the Italians. The Germans technically could spend 2 and go 1, 2 and attack the BEF. That would put them at like +4. The BEF would be itself plus a tanks marker, so that'd be +3. They could throw in an airplane for +5, so it'd be like +4 to +5. I'd have to roll really well. They'd have to roll very badly. I don't see that working. I don't see the reason to spend the production points to do something that's not going to work. I've got to wait till I get that German aircraft in 1942, maybe ship it down here to the Mediterranean to try and mess with the British fleets, and then move forward from there. So we're not going to bother. We're going to just say, nah, that's okay. The Axis has got to do supply. Up here in the east, do I have... Oh, I did that. Yeah, they're kind of stuck where they're at for the moment. Okay. So the Germans are pretty much done. Oh, I took Bryansk, so that's 2 willpower off the Russians. They're down to 41. Forgot about that. And it's not a factory, so all I got was the 2 will points off the Russians. Needed to remember to do that. Okay. I think everything's in supply, except for we have to do the med, where we run things around. These guys are going to go ahead and try and supply the 10th Army. So this guy is escorting this guy, trying to run supply through 24. It is, what's the weather here? It is severe, so the British would be +2, -4, so they'd be a net of -2. Best they can roll is a 4. If you have that, that's a 2. So these guys are guaranteed of, as long as it's escorted, even if I roll a 2, yeah, the best I can do is roll a 2. I don't get any pluses. Best I can roll is a 2, so I can actually have the Italian convoy go by itself. Because if he fights me, I take a sortie. If he doesn't fight me, I take a sortie. So either way, I take 1 sortie. And there's no reason to inflict a sortie on the British because that's just wasteful. So this is going to actually sail by itself. And the British say, yeah, okay, fine. So I get a sortie there, and this is in supply. And then I do a sortie here for the Africa Army. These 2 stay in low supply because of Tripoli, and then I'm going to go ahead and have the 4th go officially unsupplied, so it's now has a low supply marker on it. So if the British want to kill it, they can. It doesn't cost me will points, just makes it easier for me to build it back in Italy at some point. And that's the German operations phase. I'm going to take a quick break, check the time on this. I think there's going to be some things in Russia, so I don't want to go too far over time. I'll be back in just a second to let you know if this is the end of this video or if we're going to keep on going. Okay, I'm going to try and sneak in a little bit more here because I'm at 27 minutes, and I'm going to see if I can't get this in under 45 or 50 minutes. The British... first things we're going to do. We're going to do American moves. The 4th Fleet goes 3 into the North Atlantic, 4 into Sea Zone 1, 5 into Sea Zone 9, 6 into Sea Zone 7, and the Germans say, no, I don't want to intercept this fleet, that's silly. And it lands in Plymouth. Put a sortie on it. And that way it will... it helps the British fleet up here. There's no chance of a sea line working at this point. The supply will get... I don't have enough airplanes to deal with all this, especially since I haven't even started repairing the one in Dusseldorf. And then the American convoy is going to go a sailing. It goes to the North Atlantic for 3. And then it can go all the way to the South Atlantic for 6. And then it can go all the way over here, following the little black line, all the way into the Western Indian Ocean. And that gives it a sortie. Then the British will activate 2 points to activate the Western Desert Forest, and the Americans will be the people who carry them, and they will go 3 into the Arabian Sea, 4 into 31, and then it's 5, 6 through the Suez, 7 into 26, and 8 into Haifa. And that's a sortie for me. Oh, I already have a sortie marker. Control 1. There we go. So I added a sortie to this. So the Americans are there because they can just replenish sorties like without having to pay production points. lovely thing about the American production, just whatever they want to redo or whatever, they just repair it and don't worry about it. So they're helping protect the British Isles, and they're also helping the whole supply situation here in the Middle East. I almost want to bring the 10th back, too. 1, 2, 3, 4. But, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I have to do this in the right order. This one has to move 1, 3, 7. Nice, 4, 7. It takes a sortie. And then it doesn't matter which one. One of them will, another production point will activate this guy. These guys will carry them and then go 3, 4, and into Suez. Oh, take them into Suez or Port Said. Actually, I think I'm going to have Port Said do that instead of this one, and take them into Port Said, running them through the canal. And I'm going to set the convoys that's in Port Said out at sea, so I can keep track. I'm going to do that with the Americans as well. I don't have to do that. So have the American convoy be out at sea from Port at Hafia. And there we are. I have this extra convoy here that I don't know what to do with, but I don't want to run up sorties on it quite yet. So we'll go forward. That's it. I should have spent 3 from the British. Started with 16, so I'm down to 13. That's where I want to be. British are done. They have to do their supply. They have 1. Okay, they're going to do a cutesy here on this unit. They're going to put a low supply marker. They're not going to supply him this. They're going to have him draw supply from Cairo. And that means I have 1, 2, 3, 4 to supply because I want to keep the airplane in supply. So we're going to do 2 here. Maybe if I can get to the counter. 1, 2 there. We're going to make this one be even. So there's 3 there, and then we're going to put an extra one on the US. So that's 4. And the West is done. We'll go off to the Soviets. Soviets have a couple little games to play. They do have 18 production, and in the faction card they have 4 infantry, and they have 3 airplanes on the board. So they want to save 9, 13 if they can. That means moving 5 units. They aren't going to be able to save 13. So they want to save at least 9. If they get to save any more than that, that's great. But they do have a couple of shenanigans here. First off, they activate the 37th. That's 1. And it goes 1, 2, 3 to 2852. Then they activate the 2nd Shock Army. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and declares an assault on the 3rd Panzer. Then they're going to take the 16th Army. Where are we going to put it? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 16th Army gets activated. That's another production point. Too far down there for the Russians. And it's going to go 1 into a rail across the river on a rail line. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 3054. And then that allows me to take the Shock Army up here for another production point. So I should be down to 14. This is my 4th army I'm activating. Right? Yep. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4 into 2551 and also declares an assault. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's 7 to attack the Panzer because it's 2 for the enemy unit and 1 for the Hex. And then the 30th will activate my last production point there. to also call for an assault on the 3rd Panzer. So, not too shabby. I'm going to see what I get here on this attack here. The Germans are at +2 because they're German. They don't get any bonuses for armor because it's severe for them. The Russians start off at a 0. They're going to have the 30th be the primary. And then they add in 2 shock armies. Each shock army in poor adds 2. So that will be +4. And then they are in poor weather, so that's -1. So they're only a +3. If they went in with this, they'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 either way. The thing that would have changed it would have been the tanks marker would have given me an extra +1. But I used it to make sure I held Kursk. So that's what it goes. The Russians roll at +3. 5 + 3 is an 8. That's really good. The Germans roll, and don't forget, I have to have this. The Germans roll a 6 + 2 is an 8, which is a 4. And the Russians had an 8. So it's an 8 to a 4 on the combat results table. 8 to a 4. At least they didn't get a step off of me, but they did force me to retreat a hex. I only have 1 hex to go to. I have to move there, and then the Russian. Come on now. Stop that. So the Russians really only have 1 good advance, which is to push the shock army forward. And now they're threatening to do something like that out of Kursk to this infantry unit next turn. So the Germans have to keep thinking about this. +3s to +2s halved. The Russians can roll well. They can force me to lose a step besides retreat. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I activated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I activated. And I started at 18. So, yes, I'm in the right place. Okay, Russians, do they want to do this? Question is, do I want to go after the infantry? I think I want to go after the infantry because the armor's in poor terrain, so I'd be an extra -1. So I'm going to go after the infantry here. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 points I'm going to spend. So I'll be down to 10. That means I can make sure I get all 3 of my airplanes back up and maybe build another army. So he activates and attacks the 14th, declares an assault. The shock army goes 1, 2 across the river, and then it's 3 for the river, 4, 5 to attack the unit, and 6 for the hex. So he's allowed to do that. He declares an assault as well. Let's do this with the assault marker on him. And then we'll have the 33rd will also declare an assault. On the 14th. So the primary will be the guy that's not crossing the river. So that means he starts at 0. And then he gets +1 for his buddy crossing the river. And he gets +2 from the shock army. And the Germans are just 2 for being German. There's no city or anything to help me defend. So it's just whatever we roll. So the Russians are oh, wait. Do I have that right? I started at 0. I get +1 for the Russian down here, the regular guy, and I get +2 for that. I'm actually -1 because I forgot that they're under poor weather. So it's only +2 to +2. But still, I'm not halved, and he is. So 2 + 2 is a 4. The Germans, well, 5 + 2 is a 7, which becomes a 3.5, which is rounded up to a 4, so a 4 to a 4 is a nothing happens. It's a diamond result. So Tried to get him out of that space, but didn't quite work. And then I'll just make sure I repair that guy. I could spend like 3 more points and try to get another point and try to get I'd have to spend 3 to get an attack on this guy here. The first army. I'd only be +1. He's important, and I wouldn't even be. I'd be an even die roll to a +2. So that's not even worth even contemplating. So we're done with our operations. I've checked for supply. Everybody is in supply. So I'm done with the Russian operations phase. There is nobody with a no supply marker. Replacements phase for the Axis. The Italians have 13, I believe. Yes, they have 13, so they're going to spend it all. 3. Takes this down 2. 3 takes this down 2. 3 takes the airplane down 2. So that's 9. And then knowing that, that's what I forgot to move with the British. Retcon. The whole point of this exercise was to get Force H over here in January into Malta with the sortie on it. That's what the British were going to do. I totally forgot to do the move. I knew it was there, just trying to rush myself for time. So that's definitely happening no matter what. And that's what drives the Italian next move is to spend the 4 to take off the 2 sorties here because we're going to have to fight Force H, and I need to have some kind of even snowball's chance to try and get my supply through because that's just a nasty ship. I really hate that fleet versus the Italians. Okay, that's the Italians' replacements. That's their last 4. Then the Germans have 17. One has to be spent. Where is he? I'm wandering around the map here. Get up here to the Russian front. Let's clear these things so I can see units. Yes, the second needs to be flipped because, it's a pain in the butt. All 3 of my airplanes in Russia will be 9. So 3, 6, 9. I'm down to 7 left. Let's get these airplanes back. Down to 4s. I expect to see the Russians do the same thing. I have the points, so I'm going to get this airplane down a couple. So that's 3. I still have 4 left. Might as well go ahead and do this, because I don't think I have anything to build, right? Nope, nothing in the mobilization. So I'll get the convoy up here down to 1 so that he can start supplying the Nor infantry or something when he needs to. Still have, so I was 3, 6, 9, I had 17. I was 9, 12, 15, I should be down to 2. And I really don't have any units to flip, or any more units to flip or anything, so I'm done with the Germans. The West has, again, a ton. They're going to do something similar to the Italians. They're going to take this down 2 for 4, which takes me to 9. And then they're going to get the airplane completely healthy. It goes around in a corner. Get that off the board. Take this convoy down 2. And the convoy that's in Port Said will come down 2. We'll work on the convoy in Alexandria at some other time. The Americans automatically come down 2 because they don't care about production point spending. And their fleet in Plymouth is... Come on. It just goes away. Ta-da. Okay, that's the Western. The Soviets, we know that they're going to spend... Where's their faction card? National tracks. They have 10 points left. They're not going to build any new armies. What they're going to do is this shock army they put in the front line is going to get flipped for 1. And then they're going to spend 9 to flip their airplanes and be done with it. So, tried to get off some good assaults. Got a retreat on the Panzer. Didn't really get anywhere else. Where's the other airplane? Oh, he's way down here. But they're still sitting kind of pretty. Their problem is production points. They have stuff to, they always have to save 9 to clear their airplanes, and for a little while here, until some of the Euro factories show up, they're kind of short on production points, which is why you see that the infamous Russian winter doesn't really... There's not this huge offensive that they get off. They get off a couple really good assaults with their shock armies, and other than that, they take a few hexes, and that's about it. The idea here is they're trying to get some breathing room around Kursk, Orel, because those are will points. There are no upgrades. Mobilization, Axis doesn't have any. The West, I don't think he has any production points left. No, because I was going to use all 9 of those in the... I used all 9 of those in the Middle East. So I don't have the money to build the airplane. And the Soviets don't have anything. So, diplomacy phase, nobody's talking. Victory check, they haven't conquered Germany yet. End of turn phase. So we'll throw up the turn track and the faction card. Put the faction card down here in the corner a bit. Move the game turn track up a bit. We are going into January of 1942. Really clicking right along here, aren't we? The Germans get an airplane in their mobilization box. I think that's all they get. Oh, the West gets a partisans marker. Now they can do something about strategic warfare. Yay for them. Oh, the Russians get back their 3 tank markers. They also get another airplane in their mobilization box. And they get a Urals factory, which makes this go down 2 more turns, 1, 2 to March. And then I'm going to put the turn marker in January. I'm going to close the turn track and go get the national track and move their Urals factories up to 4. If you haven't done the math, by November of 1942, the Russians will be at 9 extra factories from the Urals. So even if their factory loss marker should make them have 0 factories, they still would have 9 from there and a couple from Lend-Lease. So they would be right around the 20 production point plateau. So the Russians will have a fair amount of production points. The problem is they just have too many things to do usually as far as getting things on the board. So you don't see huge offensives in 42, basically counterattacks and things like that. So we will begin the next episode at the weather phase of January 1942. This has been Dren 608. This is the Me, Myself, and I playthrough of the main event of the game Unconditional Surrender. Please leave comments. What you like, what you don't like. I mean, I'm open to both. I need to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the videos so that you won't miss any episodes going forward. And we will see you next time. This is Dren 608. Bye-bye.